Hey Channel Insiders, I'm your host Katie Bavoso, and welcome to our first ever bonus episode. In these episodes, I interview industry experts who weigh in on what's impacting the IT channel. And this time, I'm speaking with Cody Kretsinger, Principal Security Advisor at Galactic Advisors and former LulzSec hacker. Cody's experience on both sides of the cybersecurity equation make him the perfect source of knowledge about this year's threat landscape, who's at risk, who's behind the attacks, and how channel providers can and should prepare for a challenging 2024. Welcome, Cody. It's great to see you.
Yeah, I am so incredibly happy to be here, Katie. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. I'll just put it that way.
Since I reached out on LinkedIn and I was like, hey, do you want to do a thing?
And I was immediately like, yeah, let's do the thing, because I'm like all for this.
Cody, you are somebody where I talk about that I know you, like I know, George Clooney. You really blow my mind with just your career, your background, and everything you bring to the table. Would you mind talking to us a little bit about yourself?
My background essentially started in cybersecurity. I went to school for cybersecurity, got involved with a little hacktivism group for a short period of time, and then faced the repercussions, and then turned all of the bad things that I've done in my past into good and provide a really interesting, unique opportunity to be able to educate not only clients, like former clients, like businesses, but also be able to help inform MSPs on kind of best security practices. One of my crowning achievements was building a SOC from nothing into a full 24/7 by 365 organization that provided a lot of really awesome things. And I've taken those experiences and I'm giving back to the community as much as I possibly can to better help and better protect and better secure people going forward.
Do you mind if we talk a little bit about the elephant in the room, the LulzSec elephant in the room?
Yeah, so I was one of the hackers in LulzSec. In fact, Sabu, the kind of the ringleader of that organization, recruited me when I was in college. I recruited one of my fellow dorm mates in college, and we were responsible for a number of different hacks. The one specifically that I was responsible for was the Sony Pictures hack. That's not the one you're thinking about with the movie and all of that stuff. It's not that one. It was before that. Before that all happened, in fact.
Before it was cool to hack Sony, you were doing it.
When everybody hated Sony, we hacked them. Is essentially what happened. No, but
they just gave Spider-Man to Marvel. We were like, enough. We're not standing. I'm kidding, but that's not what happened, world.
Yeah. So we broke into a Ghostbusters website, downloaded a lot of database via SQL injection, and then created a torrent, distributed all that information. Obviously got caught by the FBI. They knocked on my dorm room door at 5 o'clock in the morning and suffered said consequences, which included a federal felony as well as some probation and jail time.
I have Googled you, and I really think that the real crime is the courtroom drawing of you that I've seen, because it looks nothing like you at all.
I actually have the original of that courtroom drawing, and when I reached out to the individual who drew it years and years and years later, she's a sweetheart, by the way. She does good work, I promise. Maybe
I'm not saying it's bad. It's just I don't know who this person is.
Yeah, I'm both 20 and 90 in this drawing at the same time. But I did reach out to her and purchased it. But one of the questions I had for her was, how often do people buy your courtroom drawings? And she goes, well, judges and the prosecution and some lawyers do it all the time. I said, well, when's the last time anybody that has been prosecuted bought it? And she went, I've never had that happen. I said, all right, this is a first.
Can you talk to us about what you do right now, your day job?
Yeah, so the biggest component of what I do on a day-to-day basis, there's really two components. The first one is taking adversarial tactics, techniques, and procedures and automating them in some particular way. That's one component of what I do. The other component of what I do is security research, and then also creating content so that MSPs can understand the security side of things if that's something that they want to learn more about.
Very cool. And here we are. I'd really like to talk to you a bit about what we're seeing across the cybersecurity landscape this year in 2024. And at the time of we're recording this, it's very early February, and there's already been a lot of contentious events happening in the technology space. NBC is saying that there's been 24 hacks on healthcare systems, ransomware attacks specifically on healthcare systems in this calendar year alone. We're also seeing the Volt Typhoon Chinese government-linked hacker group out there really causing a lot of issues, especially on the federal government side, where we're seeing them need to disrupt from them attacking infrastructure of wastewater facilities, of communications facilities. We're also seeing some more smaller companies that are not hospital systems, that are not giant infrastructure systems within the US being attacked, including AnyDesk, where that's not connected to Volt Typhoon, at least not at this time. We don't know. We're still learning more as this has just come out within the last week. But we are seeing that these remote software companies are still being targeted. Is it fair to say we're seeing a lot more, even if we're just talking about the hospital systems and the healthcare systems? Are there more brutal attacks, ransomware attacks, malware attacks happening on these facilities?
I wouldn't say that there's more. I think there's probably more light being shed on it, although there are some threat groups that are actually basically taking the kid gloves off and going after healthcare facilities. And that might sound weird, so let me back up for a moment. At the end of last year in December, the FBI tried to take down a very specific threat group that is notorious for ransomware. They're a ransomware group, and in fact, they even sell access to their ransomware, so that way other individuals can deploy it in networks that they have access to and get a cut of the pie of the ransom. The FBI attempted to take them down, and unfortunately, what the FBI didn't do, and this is okay, it's part of the investigation process. It can be very difficult sometimes to identify all the assets that are involved, but what they didn't do was understand the true scope of how large the infrastructure that supports this ransomware group really was. And what I mean by that is they took down a couple of key systems, but the bad guys were able to take control back in some circumstances, and really what it did was actually anger them, which is really unfortunate. So the threat actors, this ransomware group, has now taken any kind of restrictions off of what can be ransom, where they did have some ground rules before. They said previously you couldn't ransomware, critical infrastructure or healthcare facilities.
Also, it's like a gentleman's agreement almost.
Yeah, kind of like the high seas agreement with piracy. They wouldn't go after certain boats, but they would others, or maybe.
I'm glad we can make that relation in 2024 to what was going on in the 1800s, at the golden age of piracy.
But the problem is the retaliatory kind of aspect of this is now there's no limit to what the ransomware can be deployed on. The rules have been removed. Now we're starting to see healthcare, hospitals, some of those usually not targeted type environments, they're actually being targeted. And I feel like we're probably going to see more of that in 2024 for sure.
So the bear has been poked, essentially.
Yeah, in fact, I would even go a little bit further. We've taunted the bear for quite some time, and now we've poked it, and now they're really, really angry. I expect this ransomware group and probably several others, frankly, probably to take the kid gloves off a little bit more and make it a fairly painful 2024.
And just so I can really make sure that I'm giving examples in real time of what we're looking at, we've officially crossed into the second week of the largest children's hospital in Chicago. The Lurie Children's Hospital is in its second week of dealing with this ransomware attack, and their operations have been minimized drastically. They're still trying to do as much as they can because surgeries and healthcare have to go on. But you're seeing a lot of families who are struggling with kids who are suffering from terrible diseases and cancers who cannot get the full treatments that they need. So these are real people being affected by what's happening because of this ransomware attack, which is what it is. And I want to double click on something that you said, Cody, about, you said kid gloves, but you've also referred to these hackers. Who are they? In my mind, I'm thinking of Typhoon, right? A hacker group that is, a hacker group that is connected to the Chinese government. And this is all information that we've been told from our federal government, from the CISA and the FBI. But as far as where we're seeing some of these large-scale operations, are they as big as Typhoon?
That's actually a really good question. So in the case of the ransomware group, they're specifically Eastern European, and they are specifically anywhere between 18 to maybe 25-ish years old or so. They're typically just kids or young adults that are good at computers, but they're also cyber criminals. However, there are other threat groups that outside of like Typhoon, which is really a nation-sponsored threat group, so it's going to run the gamut. But there are others like Scattered Spider, for example, and this is a group of what we know is essentially 15 to 18-year-olds, which is incredibly scary. Given some of the capabilities that they demonstrated last year. The MGM hack is directly attributed to Scattered Spider, who, again, is a group of 15 to 18-year-olds. And there is some talk on the streets that they may have actually been behind another casino cybersecurity event at Caesar's properties. And this is just one threat group.
Why? I mean, how are they operating? Is this something where we're seeing it where they all meet at one place at one time and they're able to go on all these computers? I'm thinking of the very Getty Images sort of image in my head of what a hacker would look like if you Google that. How are they communicating? How are they operating? Do you know?
Yeah, it's actually very interesting. So they have a recruitment channel that's actually done via like games. So they'll play Minecraft or Call of Duty or any of these things. And they kind of indoctrinate new, younger individuals to join this Discord server where they kind of figure out whether or not they would be interested in maybe participating in some of the cybercrime. And then once they do that, they then transition into kind of a more private chat. And then after that, they have Telegram channels where they can communicate via encrypted methods. So they have an entire recruitment process as well as kind of like a way to become a member. So Scattered Spider has a tendency to not only do digital cyber attacks, but also physical in-person attacks as well. There are specific cases where they've actually assaulted individuals in order to get passwords or other kind of sensitive information that they then can leverage in a cybercrime attack. There's not too many threat actors outside of like nation states that are willing to go quite that far. The flip side of that is most people considered Scattered Spider as this kind of nebulous group of people that are spread out all across the world and whatnot. By and large, it's 15 to 18-year-olds in the United States. So we're actually kind of aware of who they are, and it's just kind of a matter of time before the FBI and probably the Secret Service get to them at some point.
Cody, as an elder in this space yourself.
Oh, no.
What would you say to them as far as the access that they have to being the white hat hacker rather than the black hat hacker?
Well, the first component here is to just stop doing crime. It's only going to make it worse, right?
Yeah.
The next component is, and this is essentially for everybody else that's looking into cybersecurity. I'll get back to your question in just a moment. There are ways to become a cybersecurity professional that don't include cybercrime or hacking into an organization and proving yourself now. I was on kind of that tail end of folks that could kind of get away with that. And to be fair, it has created a lot of stress and anxiety in my life, right? In terms of being able to be employed, even because that was a struggle as soon as I re-entered the job force, because I had to prove to everyone that I was doing it for good. And clearly now I've got the credentials to do so. Now, however, when young individuals commit a cybercrime, they're essentially destined to never work in the industry ever again. The kids that have committed these crimes are going to have a very big uphill battle going forward. And had they just used something like hack this site or hack this box or any of the other online tools in order to test their chops, to hone their skills, they would have been able to get into the cybersecurity field and really do something interesting. Because red teaming or penetration testing is a awesome, challenging, rewarding job. And as a recovering red teamer, I can tell you right now, it is super, super awesome. Sometimes it's the most complex puzzle you'll ever encounter, and there's just no way of knowing if you're going to be able to solve it, which is both awesome and dreadful at the same time. But where I'm headed with all of this is that if you can't do it legit, then you're not going to be able to do it legit. And you really have to make sure you're not breaking any laws, because there's not going to be much forgiveness in terms of doing it. So really, it's a matter of, if you want to be part of the cybersecurity community, you've got to do it the legitimate way now, because there is a legitimate way to get into the field, unlike what there was previously.
And I do want to make sure that we draw a difference between what something like Scattered Spider is compared to Volt Typhoon. They're a nation-state hacker group. We're looking at them having political reasons driving their intentions. That's a big one that you're going to hear a lot in the channel, because we are seeing a lot of Volt Typhoon vulnerabilities related to some of the networking technology that comes from a lot of vendors in the channel. And it's not that they've been designed with flaws or vulnerabilities. It's that somebody out there has figured out how to exploit that. In this case, Volt Typhoon. So, I mean, Cody, what do the channel providers who are supplying and using some of these Fortinet or Cisco-based technologies, networking appliances, what do they need to be concerned about with this information out there right now?
Yeah, when it comes to Volt Typhoon, there's a lot to unpack with Volt Typhoon.
Yeah.
So I'll stick to specifically the network appliances, because I think there's a much larger discussion you and I can have just in general about some of the tactics and procedures that these guys have. But I think what it does is it highlights the incredible importance on any of these network appliances or anything that's running firmware, software at all, the necessity in order to keep things updated. Just as we're recording this, last night, there is a critical Fortinet SSL vulnerability that allows bad guys to remotely execute code. And that's a big fancy way of basically saying gain access to a system, right? Mm-hmm. That's all it really boils down to. And that's just last night that dropped. And Fortinet's not alone. You can look at all of the other vendors that are out there and point to a significant vulnerability that has been discovered within the last year. They're all impacted, and they're going to continue to be. And the reason why is, traditionally, a firewall like that is the first and last point of kind of security in an organization, which is the reason why most bad guys are targeting these and why they're so important, right? So if that is the system boundary or the network boundary, and the first thing that they come across, if they can exploit that and work their way deeper into the network, of course, that's where they're going to focus a lot of their time and energy in. And in fact, security researchers are doing the same thing, and so are other bad guys. They're constantly hammering away at these systems because it allows them that first step into a network. That really highlights the need for the adoption of kind of the zero trust network that everybody has been talking about, at least on some different varying levels, right? Because the reliance on that appliance to do all of the work to totally protect the organization is now distributed amongst every asset within an organization, every endpoint, every network device, every IoT device. As long as they're all following zero trust, it makes it incredibly more difficult for the bad guys to compromise the entire organization when it's just one device and it's limited in whatever scope it can possibly have access to.
I hope you enjoyed part 1 of our first bonus episode, but stay tuned for part 2 with Cody coming to you on Tuesday. And check out channelinsider.com for more Channel Insider Partner POV episodes, and never miss an episode by subscribing to our YouTube channel at channelinsider_news and trends, as well as our podcast on your preferred podcast platform. I'm Katie Bavoso. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.